Hello everyone, welcome back to AgriAdventures, the YouTube channel, and today we also are on Radio Italia Uno, but also we are on AgriAdventures Facebook page. So today we have the opportunity to speak with Gualberto Ricci Curbastro, which this is an interview, in this 50 minutes interview on Radio Italia Uno and AgriAdventures is a little bit different than usual, because as you get from the name, Gualberto is Italian and he's in Italy, which means that the interview is done a little bit further than what we generally do, that's speaking with food producers in South Australia. So Gualberto, first of all, welcome to the AgriAdventures channel.
Buongiorno Simone, thank you everyone, thank you for joining and listening.
And I was wondering if you were able to tell us here in South Australia a bit more about yourself, and especially I was really interested because your surname is quite complex, being also Italian. I was trying to figure it out, what was the connection. There is something interesting behind that. So,
well, first of all, again, thank you for inviting me, and of course the great advantage of the technology is that even though we are so far away, we can stay together even at the opposite side of the world. The Ricci Curbastro family is definitely a very old tradition, which it's represented by the many generations which are behind me. Today, me and also my brother, who just joined in the company, we do represent the 18th generation of the family in the business, which means an history that for sure goes back to the 14th century. We are able to date back to Pietro Ricci Curbastro, who we can say was the founder of the family. Actually, we know that the family is even older than that, because the Ricci Curbastro, the origin of the Ricci Curbastro is that our was a noble family coming from Florence. So from Tuscany. That is the period more or less of Dante Alighieri, period of politics fight in the city. The mistake of the family was to vote for the wrong side, for the wrong party. At that time there was no second chance, so once you voted wrong, you were exiled. So the family was sent from Florence to the nearby region, which is Emilia-Romagna, specific in the Romagna area, that at that period was not so popular because it's the area nearby the Po River, so it was a wet area, humid area, not the best place where to be. Over there, the family built his history, his properties. In between our ancient, there are also famous people which were outside of the agricultural world. We have a very famous mathematician, which is Gregorio, which has been helping Albert Einstein with the development of his theory. At the same time, we have many soldiers who fight for the Italian army during the First World War and Second World War. So there is definitely an history which has always been tied to the agricultural world. So we like to define ourselves as a family of farmers, because we have been always involved in managing and our lands and producing product, mostly wine. For sure, the family was producing wine in Franciacorta, so where the cellar is set today. So in the region, Franciacorta is a tiny region in Lombardy. For sure, we were producing wine in bottle, so we still have labels dating back to 1885. And then we can say that was mostly my grandfather, Gualberto, so I carry his name, who definitely transformed the cellar, the estate into a modern cellar, joining that movement that at the beginning of the 60s in Franciacorta, so specifically in 1967, helped to create the modern Franciacorta DOC. So he has been one of those producers who saw the potentiality of the region, set down the first rules, and then started that process that has brought today Franciacorta to be one of the major Italian denomination, or maybe actually without maybe the first Italian denomination for classic method sparkling wine.
Sparkling wine. Okay, so that is interesting because you've been throwing a lot of information. That is really cool because people now will start to be more curious about. So your business is a family-run business and produce mainly wine located in Franciacorta region, that is in Lombardy, under the Iseo Lake close by. And what your specific job, what are you doing over there? What you've been doing? Why did you end into the family business? Is something it was expected, or is something that you want to do by passion? Tell something a bit more.
Well, we were lucky because my father never pushing any of us. We are three brothers. Right now, two of us working in the business. I'm the oldest one, and I joined 4 years ago when I was 25 years old. After my studies, which actually were made in a completely different sector. I mean, not totally different because I've been studying business and management, but not a specific winemaking or agronomist studies. So definitely was a passion for me. Of course, I've been growing in this world, so I've been always breathing this air of passion that characterize our family, characterize our business. We have a wine museum in the cellar. So this history, this relationship with wine and with the wine business has always been something which encouraged me. And in the end, I decided that was my job for the future. So it was an easy decision for me.
So you said the metodo classico or classic method, and for the people that's following us on the radio, and to make it simple to understand, classic method is like the champenoise, so it's the same technique used to produce champagne, and while the Charmat method or Martinotti, it's the one that you could say is used for the Prosecco. The big difference is mainly that the champenoise, you have a basic wine, and then this wine ends into single container bottles, different shapes or different size, but single container bottles with yeasts and sugar. And then you have a secondary fermentation, which increase characteristic and also creates these types of really recognizable bubbles. But do you know how long it was produced, this champenoise method in Franciacorta?
Well, we actually, because in Franciacorta we are extremely proud of what we do, and we are extremely proud about our history and heritage. We don't like, and actually we cannot call our method classic method or champenoise method or any other words, but we call it Franciacorta method. This gives you an idea of how unique and how historic is this method. If we need to talk about modern tradition, we have a quite not too long history because everything was started in 1967 with the DOC, the first denomination. But this recent history has been always preceded by a very old tradition. Actually, it's in Franciacorta that we have one of the first information about wines produced with bubbles. This is in a book which was written by a Franciacorta doctor, which is called Girolamo Conforto, 16th century, so even before the famous abbey in Champagne. Okay. And this doctor was talking about wines which were called mordace, which in Italian it's an old way to say something with some complexity, some bubbles. These wines were already produced and known in the region. So this is an extremely interesting information about the very old heritage of production of sparkling wine in Franciacorta.
Okay. And so now speaking about the Ricci Curbastro. So first of all, the vineyards, are them owned and managed, all of them by your family, or do you buy from somebody else the grapes?
No, actually we only grow and manage our grapes. So we own all of the vineyards, and we use our grapes. So by philosophy, we don't buy anything from other producer. This allows us to control completely the process, even because we farm organic and sustainable, which we will maybe talk a little bit deeper later. But this is important for us to have the full control. The dimension today is about 28 hectares of vineyards, which make us, let's say, in Franciacorta is a medium-sized estate. If we talk about globally, it's extremely tiny estate.
Extremely tiny. Exactly.
The production is about 200,000 bottles per year, more or less.
200,000, okay. It's really curious because in Australia, the average winery, it goes around 800 acres. So that is a completely different size, completely different spectrum of production, and that's probably one of the main big differences between the Italian market and the Australian market. It's so interesting because actually in the different documents that I had to go through, come out that Italy produces probably 10 times more wine than Australia, the whole Australia, but is fractured in such small, tiny parcel of small producers, which a majority of them, they are family that they are running. They are, as your family, 20 hectares of vineyard, and they are doing everything from the A to the Z. So you said, how many type of wines do you produce in Ricci Curbastro?
Well, we have a quite wide range of wine, but definitely would say that 75 of our production is focused on the Franciacorta wines, so the sparkling, classic method sparkling wine, which today they are divided in, let's say, generally speaking, 6 typologies of Franciacorta plus some Reserva style, which they get on the market after longer aging in the bottle. So in the end, between 6 to minimum of 6 up to 12 labels of Franciacorta. And then I have 9 different labels of still wine, which are produced under the 2 other denominations which are allowed in Franciacorta, which are called Curte Franca DOC and Sebino IGT. Over there, we produce white and red with typical grapes of the region, which is mostly Chardonnay and Pinot Bianco, and for the red is mostly Cabernet blends with Merlot, Carmenère, Cabernet Franc, Cabernet Sauvignon. So this is generally speaking the history. Together with that, we own a second farm in Emilia Romagna, which is much smaller than Ricci Curbastro, because we are talking about 7 hectares where we produce 3 labels of Sangiovese.
Okay. And so first of all, for who's familiar with the sparkly Champenoise method, the classic blend is done by Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier. Well, I know that Franciacorta doesn't use the same varieties. So is that like I suppose there is Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. Are they the classic or not?
Yeah, we have Chardonnay and Pinot Noir and Pinot Bianco. Which are the 3 main grapes. Pinot Bianco and Chardonnay are historical of the region, maybe quite surely arrived in the region over 10 centuries ago with monks coming from Cluny, which were having cloisters in Franciacorta. Recently, a 4th variety was added to the disciplinary of production, which is an indigenous grape varieties of the region. So it's pretty unknown for most of the people, which is called Herba Mate. This is a new project of rediscovering this local and ancient grape.
Interesting. I never heard about that. So that is really a novelty, I have to say. And a standard Franciacorta has a limited minimum number of years to spend in a bottle. Is that right?
Yeah, it's true. That's why one of the reasons that we like to call our method Franciacorta, because the rules are so unique and actually so strict. Our is the strictest disciplinary in the world for producing classic method sparkling wine, and one of the rules is that we have to age at least 18 months in the bottle on lees. which sum to the 6 months that you have to do after the first fermentation, means that you cannot have a Franciacorta on the market before 2 years from the harvest. This is definitely the very minimum, because if we talk about vintage Franciacorta, the time get up to 3 years, and at least 3 years. And for the Riserva style, we're talking about wines which can be sold after 5 years of aging in the cellar. So the time is definitely a very important ingredient for us as Ricci Curbastro and for the denomination as well.
Wow, it's really interesting. So you have the same time limitations that there are in Barolo, for instance. I know the Barolo has 3 years for the regular Barolo to be ready to be sold, and then the reserve need to get up to 5 years. So like the top wines in all Italy, they have this kind of ranges, and even a bubbles has the same one in Franciacorta. That is really, really interesting. And do you sell your wines only in your region, or where are the markets that you are selling the products at the moment?
Well, even though we are not so big, we've been always able to sell our wine also abroad. We have to say that the Italian market is the main market, is still the main market for Franciacorta. For us, that counts for about 70%, which is quite a good balance, because generally speaking, Franciacorta, the export is about 15%. So we do more or less the double of exporting in many different markets right now, talking from the US, of course, almost quite everywhere in Europe. And on the east side of the world, we export very well in Japan and also in Australia, which is right now an historic market for us, because we are present since more than almost 10 years right now. Thanks to our importer, which I like to mention, because also if you are curious to find the wines on the market, that's the person to contact, which is Godot Wines, who's importing our Franciacorta and also still wines in the market.
Okay, interesting. And so sometimes I like that the followers of the program and the YouTube channel, they had the opportunity to see what's happening in this globalized and social media world. I suppose that you have a Facebook page or an Instagram page, is that right?
Yeah, we have both. Of course, we have a website. Everything is under the Ricci Curbastro name, so you can easily search Ricci Curbastro and you can find our Facebook, Instagram, and also website. I like to say that on the website also we have a lot of information. So if someone is curious to also go deeply into what we said also today, the history of the family, sustainability, organic farming, wines, so everything we do, it's really all the information can be found on our website, which is www.riccicurbastro.it.
Perfect. Okay, so we are in the age of COVID. Italy, especially hospitality, has been forced a little bit to no work this year. What are we are almost at the end of this 2020. What are the outcomes for you as business? What's the situation?
Well, the outcomes for the year is that we have been able to, let's say, survive to this period. So we've been able to face this event, which actually could not be predicted. Of course, the interesting thing is that has been really teaching us how business could be made also in different ways. So we were used to travel the world, to meet people, to meet importers, to go to the wine fairs, to close contracts. This sometimes this year has been easier to be made thanks to technology. So the meetings were online and not physically. But in the end, we will need to get back to that physical contact, especially for family-owned estate like us, where beside the label, beside the bottle, there is a history, there are peoples. So we want to be able again to travel, to tell this history, to teach people how unique our wine are and what we do to make this wine so unique. So this is something which is extremely important.
I know that you in Ricci Curbastro, you have been caring a lot in terms of sustainability, and we were speaking about. So what is the vision in this case of Ricci Curbastro?
We have an approach which, first of all, is certified. So it's not just me saying that I'm sustainable. There is a certification beside. It's called Equalitas. It's one of the most advantaged standard in the world in terms of sustainability, because of course it's not just anymore environmental sustainability, which of course is fundamental. It's the base where to start. But at the same time, we focus a lot on the economical sustainability and the social or ethical sustainability. So how much the stakeholder, the whole community is important. We do a lot for that. Every year we publish a sustainability report, which is available also on the website under the sustainability page. It's both in Italian and in English. So it's easy to be read, a lot of images. It's really easy to understand. It's published since the first year we certified, so 2017. So you also are able to see how the evolution, how the seller has been dealing in the last previous 3 years on sustainability, because of course this is a path also for us. We are not yet to the goal. We always like to improve ourselves and trying to do something better every year long.
In your opinion, on the vineyards, what is there something that is done to have that sustainability applied, or it's more done in the cellador, or it's done more in the winery or with people?
It's done through the whole process. So of course in the vineyards, we started farming organic, which was a passage, but this was just a regular path too, because our cellar has been farming since more than 35 years right now without pesticides. So we don't use pesticides since the 70s. So the process to organic was kind of natural for us to be made, but that's not enough. We like to see how the environment is. So it's not just enough. When we plant a new vineyard, most of the time we plant also other trees, we recreate an environment, which is fundamental, because in that way you create a biodiversity. We analyze our biodiversity. So it's also interesting for us to see how the biodiversity in the vineyards grow through the years, thanks to the work that we do. Then is also brought to the cellar. To bring it to the cellar, for example, what we do is to analyze the carbon footprint, because we have an impact in terms of vineyards, but we also have an impact in terms of production. Our cellar are quite big because we need to have the space to keep our Franciacorta aging, and to do the Franciacorta aging, you need to have an environment where you have cold temperature, perfect, possibly without light. To do that, we built our cellar up to 50 meters below the ground, so we are able to have environment which actually don't need any cooling or heating system. So this is a great advantage in terms of carbon footprint impact, because the cellar actually is able to also, thanks to the solar cells that we have to produce and all the energy that it needs to work. So also the carbon footprint is fundamental. And finally, another aspect, which is the water footprint. We don't have irrigation in Franciacorta, which is not allowed. But at the same time, we like to see that to control what we do, the process in how we use water for treatments in the vines, but also for washing our tanks after we kept the wines into that. So we like to have an approach which could be, I like to say, 360 degree, because that's what is today's sustainability.
Perfect. Well, that is a big challenge for a business that, from a point of view of Australia, is a small business, but it's taking it pretty seriously, I can say. And it was a pleasure to speak with you, Gualberto. And I hope that the people that have been following on the radio, they will have extra questions, and then maybe they can get in contact with me and they can figure it out, because there is a website, so they can find your products and help in some way. Even though in the other side of the planet, but it helps a little bit to develop this vision of sustainability and the family business, which is to me really important. And So for the people that are following us on Radio Italia Uno and on the YouTube channel, we'll see them next week. Thanking to Gualberto and all the other food producers that they are bringing their experiences and their knowledge every week to us to share. And thank you, Gualberto, for being with us.
Simone, thank you very much, and thank you to everyone who's been joining and listening us, and Merry Christmas.
Buon
Wishing
Natale.
a very good 2021.
Exactly, to everyone. Perfect. Ciao.
Thank you.